friends, it's Miss Kirk. I wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about what's coming up this week, Kirk's English 3 Virtual Learning Week 2. I think we have a few more weeks in it, so let's see what we got today. First thing I want to do is remind you of your final essay for the course. So I know it's a little bit different because we're not really at school, but we're still going to do this assignment. So what is the American dream? Consider your own experience and the development of the American dream throughout literary history. Write an essay explaining how the American dream has changed over time. So you're going to be looking at what you think about the American dream, but you're also going to connect it back to each of those literary time periods. We'll talk more about this as we go on, but as you know, every unit, I've reminded you of this task all year long. So we do have a lot of standards that are going to be built into this unit, and the first thing that I want to focus on is the use of themes in these texts. So each week, we're going to look at a specific section of The Great Gatsby, and then we're going to connect that to some informational text and a little bit later some poetry using Common Lit. So as we go through each lesson, you're still going to have your lesson overview, learning intention, and success criteria. This will help you out as you work toward completion of the lesson through the agenda. So your learning intention. Through the study of The Great Gatsby Chapter 1, you're going to be able to analyze word choice to evaluate the influence on point of view on characterization. Your success criteria is that you can analyze diction, or the word choice, to draw conclusions about the author's choices in the text, that you can recognize the benefits and limitations of point of view, that you can analyze direct and indirect characterization, and draw conclusions about the characters and their purpose based on that characterization, and then that you can use imagery to visualize the primary settings in the text. So hopefully going over this and using your Nearpod and your reading guide will help you progress through this week's learning. Why The Great Gatsby, you ask? Well, there are so many reasons why this novel is great. When I first had to read The Great Gatsby, I didn't get it. It didn't click. It wasn't there for me. I couldn't connect at all to these rich people and their rich people problems. But the more I got into it, and especially now, kind of the older that I am, the more I realized that it isn't necessarily a story about being rich. So try to keep that in mind as you look through it. As a side note, this actually is one of my favorite stories to this day. In addition to teaching it each semester, I actually read it for fun every summer because I think it has some of the most beautifully written words and sentences and lines in there. And if you join us on the live stream each week, I'm going to go over some of my favorite lines from the text and why I think they're so beautiful. But anyway, enough about me. So just kind of a couple of ideas. The illumination from a great novel never fades. It sends the reader to another look in the mirror. And I have this quote here because this is a novel that has been around for a while and it continues to be around, and it's something that some people choose to read and some people are forced to read every single year. But regardless of how you come to the text of The Great Gatsby, it does make you look at yourself. Sometimes you think, at least I'm not like that, or have I ever been like that before? And so there are a lot of different levels here in this text. So 5, it's a rant against society. And let's be real, who doesn't like to rant against society? I've seen Twitter. You have too. So the 1920s society has many, many things in common with today's day and age. And I would challenge you to try and figure out what those are as you're reading the text. How does it relate? I promise it's there. Number 4, Fitzgerald actually set out to write the great American novel. And many people argue this is it because it has stood the test of time. It was the first inherently American novel because it does discuss the American dream in great detail. But I want you to read it and see if you can figure out why it has stood the test of time. Number 3, it's considered an art masterpiece. And you're actually going to get to look at this in the Nearpod for this week's lesson after reading Chapter 1. We're going to talk about how the cover came to be. Ooh, exciting, right? I know. All right, number 2, it is about the American dream. And I'm going to argue that although the American dream, in my opinion, you get to make your own opinion, it has changed over time. I think at the core, it's still kind of there. It's more about the way people change and the way society changes as we strive for the American dream. So I'm going to challenge you to think about that as you go through each chapter of this book as well. And then finally, it might actually be about true and enduring love. I don't know. Let's see if you can find the positive side of humanity in The Great Gatsby. So what does this process look like for us? This is our anticipated reading guide. So I have a minute outline here, and this is because we're actually I will be sharing with you the audiobook chapters so that you can use them. I think that will be helpful for you. Obviously, I'm going to give you a PDF so that you'll have that as well. But audiobooks are helpful. So this minute guideline is based on the audiobook. So we're going to start this week with chapter 1. Next week, we're going to do chapters 2 and 3. Move into the next one. We're going to do 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 7 is a wee bit long. A lot bit long, I'm not going to lie to you. So we're going to do only one chapter that week, and then we'll move in the next week and finish it. So I am super excited about this process, but there are a few literary concepts I want to make sure that you remember as you read this book. So characterization. This is the way in which the writer reveals information about the characters. So we talked about direct characterization, which are direct statements about the character's personality. And we talked about indirect, which is describing what the character says and does and how others respond to them. So I want you to think about how both of these are used in the text to help you draw your own conclusions about the mysterious Jay Gatsby. Also, Fitzgerald creates foils for each of the main characters. Those are the characters you'll remember that contrast, and kind of like their purpose is to highlight the character traits of the main character. So see if you can find those parallels as you're reading. Who would be the person who is kind of the foil to which of the main characters? And who are the main characters, by the way? Point of view was also in your learning intention. Remember that point of view is the perspective from which the story is told. This is told in first person point of view, and the narrator is a character in the story. So I want you to see how the story's events are shaped because of the fact that the narrator is the one telling us the stories. And of course, you have to think about credibility and reliability and all those exciting narrator conversations. Next, narrative structure. In this particular text, Fitzgerald actually uses flashback to help your knowledge about Jay Gatsby expand. And I want you to think about that as you go through each of the chapters when you're reading. Next, symbolism. We talked a lot about this with Foster. It's a person, a place, a thing, something that stands for something other than itself. Notice he's going to reference the green light and the eyes of T.J. Eichelberg. See if you can figure out what they mean and what they might represent. The green light's coming up right this week at the end of chapter 1. Next, a novel's plot centers on the escalation and the drive toward the resolution of the conflicts. Of course, the external ones, those are the outside forces, and the internal, the ones on the inside of the characters. So you may remember that we did the somebody wanted but so analysis at the beginning of the year. And you're going to bring that skill back because I want you to think about what each character wants most and what's it getting in the way of achieving those goals. So what does all of this look like when you put it together? It's going to help you identify the theme. And remember, when we did Somebody Wanted But So, it was for a theme analysis activity. So the theme is the insight about life that is conveyed in the work of literature. And I want you to think about the themes you find here. Now remember, theme is not a one-word thing. Theme is a complete sentence. It's the so what and why do I care about that one word thing. So I'm going to challenge you to think about the American dream. So what about the American dream? Why do I care about the American dream? But also the importance of money and, the differences between reality and perception and everything else that's addressed in this text. And then, of course, theme is sometimes open to interpretation. So what theme do you find based on your life experiences? So, overview for the week. First of all, your pet parade flip grid. What pet do you have keeping you company in your quarantine? Or do you not have a pet? Do you wish you had a pet? Talk to us about this on our flip grid. Next, you're going to do your EdPuzzle. Your EdPuzzle is actually going to be where you read and annotate the text of chapter 1 from The Great Gatsby. This tool was chosen because rather than having a book and having a reading guide, you're able to listen to the audiobook and answer the questions right there built into the EdPuzzle. This is going to be out of 100 points, so make sure that when you're doing that EdPuzzle, you're paying attention. I will provide you with the text of the book so you can read along. Me personally, I put EdPuzzle on one side of the screen and the PDF on the other so that I could go back and revisit the text as I was answering those questions. Next, you're going to have a Nearpod. This is going to help you with processing chapter 1 skills. In this Nearpod, you're going to look at details about the setting, a little bit more information about the characters, and then, of course, the cover, that whole art and masterpiece thing that I was talking about. Finally, you're going to do the common lit. Keeping Up with the Joneses. This text is designed intentionally to prepare you for Chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby. And remember, Chapter 2 is coming next week. So I hope this overview has helped you so that you can understand exactly what is expected in Week 2 virtual learning with Miss Kirk's English 3. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. In the meantime, have a great quarantine. Stay separate. See ya. Bless you, my children.